Okay, we'll start again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Municipality of Thames Centre. The date is May 29th, 2023. The time is 5:01, and I'm calling this meeting to order. First thing that I would like to indicate is there are no additions that I'm aware of for the agenda. So at this time, I would like to ask council if they have any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the presentation portion of the meeting. And are there any announcements? Sorry, who jotted down the line? Any announcements to make? No? Okay, all righty. So we have some presentations to make this evening. They're the Charity Depot presentation. And at this time, I'd like to call on the Environmental Services Superintendent, Kevin Wilson.
Then I hold that. There we go. So I'm Kevin Wilson, the Superintendent of Environmental Services, and one of the fun things I get to do every year is present the checks to our charities. We hold charity depots in Dorchester and Thorndale every year where residents can come and they can drop off their metal, their electronics, tires and batteries, and then we take those items in, get them recycled, but we get money back for it. And we get to present the checks to the charities this year. So our first charity is, we'll go with the MS Bike Ride first. Barry's not here. Okay.
Barry's not here?
Barry's not here.
That's too bad.
That is too bad.
Yeah, it is.
So I guess it's just you and me then. Perfect.
I've donated to Barry's charity for many, many years, and he has done a great job in this community for all the effort he puts into actually raising the funds that go for a really worthwhile charity for MS. So thank you.
He told me that this year he's close to $1 million in total donations.
Very good. Very good.
What do we have next? The next one will be the North Dorchester Optimist.
Hello, John.
Thank you so much for doing that again.
Oh, sure. We got to come on this side.
I have to go on.
Yes.
That. Oh,
So
Thank
John,
you,
we're
Mr.
really
Mayor.
happy to do this because you do a lot of great work in this
We try.
community. So,
We try.
yes, you know, I know you do.
Well, thank you so much for doing this for us again and helping out the Optimist Club and the community.
Our pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we have one more.
And one more for the Thorndale Optimist.
Aren't they the biggest checks ever?
It's good. We can use it. Thank you.
And thank you for all you do in Thorndale for the good work for the Optimist Club up there too.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank Arts Crushing that provides the bins to the charity depots. Green Valley Recycling is where we take the electronics, and John Zubik's scrap metal is where we take the metal to.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
So to resume the meeting, I would like again to thank everyone for supporting the charity depots in Dorchester and Thorndale communities. It's a great effort. At this time, the council will adjourn its regular meeting and the time is 5:06 p.m. in order to sit as the Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act to consider the minor variance application. The Committee of Adjustment will consider all comments when making its final decision. So may I have a mover to move? Deputy Mayor Smyber, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. The purpose of the public meeting is to consider a minor variance application A2-23, John and Carly McCutcheon as applicant, and the property is 22835 Heritage Road. So I believe Aunt Alana is doing the overview of this. Okay, thank you. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. My name is Alana Cortez, and I'm a planner with the County of Middlesex, and I provide planning advisory services to Thames Center. So the purpose and effect of this application is to seek relief from the Thames Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as it relates to the minimum distance separation 2 or MDS2 to allow the expansion of an existing poultry operation. The applicant is proposing to construct an additional barn with a floor area of approximately 439 square meters to support an expanding operation and would be situated south of the existing barn. The additional barn is proposed to be set back 284 meters from a nearby dwelling located at 22788 Heritage Road and 50 meters from the nearest road allowance, whereas MDS2 would require 299 meters setback from the nearby dwelling and 60 meters from the nearest road allowance. It is important to note that no new access is proposed for the additional barn, and the nearby dwelling at 22788 Heritage Road is also located on a farm containing a livestock operation. The subject property is a 50-acre farm located on the west side of Heritage Road and south of Plover Mills Road. The farm contains a single detached dwelling, a poultry barn, a shop, and a number of grain bins. The dwelling is serviced by a private well and sewage disposal system. The balance of the farm is used for the cultivation of field crops. The lands are designated agricultural according to the Thames Center official plan and zoned agricultural according to the Thames Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw. Planning staff have conducted our analysis where the variance was evaluated against the 4 tests of a minor variance and are satisfied that the proposed variance meets all 4 tests in that the effects of the variance can be considered minor in nature, can be considered an appropriate use of the land, and the variance maintains the intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The additional barn is not a new land use for the area, and unacceptable adverse impacts on neighboring lands are not anticipated. Furthermore, the barn would be set back a sufficient distance from a roadway to ensure the safe passage of vehicles with no sightline obstructions. In regards to comments received during the circulation for this application, no comments or concerns were identified by the county engineer, the director of public works, or the drainage superintendent. No public comments have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation that minor variance application A2-23 be approved for the reasons outlined in the report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant in the room? Would you like, do you have any additional comments that you would like to make? Okay. Yeah. Well, excuse me, while you're making your comments, would you mind coming to the mic and then just sort of repeating? If you hit the center button and just for the record, if you want to state your name, please. And
John McCutcheon.
thank you. Have a seat there, John, if you like.
No, not too many other further comments than what were already said. We're just requesting we just want to utilize what's already there, as opposed to finding a new location, which is very challenging, as I found out, due to neighboring dwellings on other facilities or farms, I should say. The one thing I just wanted to point out with this is it's 22853 Heritage Road, not 35. I just wanted to bring that to your
Yeah,
attention.
no, that's
I don't know
good.
if that's
Correct the
typo or-
record. So 22853 instead of
Correct.
35.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, John. If that's it, then that, are there any questions from the public, or is there anyone online virtually? No, your worship. Okay. All right. So at this point, then I'll ask if there are any questions from members of council. Okay. Seeing none. So do I have someone who would like to move the recommendation? Deputy Mayor Smyberg, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Seeing Mr. Heeman there as well. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. So at this point, I'd like to ask for an adjournment of the Committee of Adjustment to move into the public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the May 29th, 2023 council agenda. May I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Crockett, and the time is 5:12 p.m. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. So at this point, council will consider all comments received when making its final decision on all of the applications tonight. And the purpose of the public meeting is to consider a consent application B11-23. Owners Tom and Vlasta Lawson. Property address is 2227 Hamilton Road. And I believe Mr. Bancroft is going to provide us with the overview.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, your worship. So the purpose of this application is to convey a parcel of land from an existing farm located in the municipality of Thames Centre, as well as in the city of London, to facilitate the sale of lands located in the city to support future industrial development. So just in terms of background, the subject property, it's a 56-hectare farm located mostly in Thames Centre, about 2/3 of the farm in Thames Centre, with the balance located in the city of London. So this farm originally was wholly contained in the former township of Westminster. However, as a result of the 1993 annexation by the city of London, the city consumed basically the east third of the farm, whereas the remaining 2/3 is situated in Thames Centre. This property is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops, and it contains 2 single detached dwellings along with a drive shed. Those existing structures are located in Thames Centre, and the lands are designated according to the official plan for agricultural purposes, and also zoned for agricultural purposes according to our zoning bylaw. The balance of the farm located in the city, it is designated for future industrial purposes. So the applicant is proposing to convey the portion of the farm located entirely in Thames Centre, and it would have an area of about 38 hectares. The balance of the farm, the lands to be retained, they are vacant and wholly contained in the city of London, and they would have an area of about 18 hectares. I've conducted my analysis, your worship, as outlined in my report, and there's certainly policy direction offered by the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and also the Thames Centre official plan governing the creation of farm lots, which should be of a sufficient size, large enough to maintain productive and viable farm units. The county plan, along with the Thames Center plan, they discourage consents for new farm lots where you're dealing with the creation of a farm parcel that's less than 40 hectares in size. At the same time, under the Thames Center official plan, it's intended that all figures and quantities be considered as approximate only and not absolute. And furthermore, amendments to the plan will not be required for any reasonable deviation from any of the proposed figures. So considering the lands to be conveyed would have an area of about 38 hectares, slightly less than the 40 hectare minimum farm size. The intent of the official plan, in my opinion, would be maintained, considering the amount of land designated agricultural is to remain the same, regardless of this consent. And in all, that would represent a reasonable deviation and would not warrant an amendment to the official plan, in my opinion. For the same reasons, the lands to be conveyed, although deficient in the minimum lot area requirement under the agricultural A zone, so that requirement would be 40 hectares. The limit of the parcel that is zoned agricultural would remain unchanged and would continue to have legal non-complying or grandfathered status. And as I mentioned before, the balance of the farm, some 18 hectares located in the city of London, those lands would be proposed to accommodate future industrial development. So based on my analysis, I'm satisfied that this proposal is consistent with provincial policy and in conformity with the county and Thames Center official plans. And lastly, would conform with the Thames Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. In terms of circulation comments received, none received from the public, but from agencies. The county engineer is requesting the standard widening dedication, measured 18 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 29 or Hamilton Road. If the right of way is not already to that width. Also, following the circulation of my report, I did receive feedback from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. They have no objection. And also no concerns were identified by Hydro One, Enbridge, our Director of Public Works, or our Drainage Superintendent. So it's my recommendation, Your Worship, that this application for consent B11-23 be approved and subject to the 5 conditions that are noted in my report and also for the reasons outlined in my report. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant or a representative in the room who wishes to speak to the issue?
Yes, Your Worship. Dan Smith is on his way moving over.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, would you like to speak?
Yes, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Dan Smith. I'm here on behalf of Stuart Finlater and Associates. We're representing the owners in this application. I just wonder, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the audio is a bit poor on this end. I apologize for that. I just wanted to state that we've had the opportunity to review the planning report from Mr. Bancroft, and we certainly have no issue or no objections to that. The conditions which Mr. Bancroft is recommending are standard conditions that are attached to these types of severances. And I can say in my 40 some odd years experience with planning, I can count perhaps maybe 3 other applications I've dealt with where we had a similar issue with municipal boundaries affecting a consent application. And so it's certainly not a common thing. But we certainly believe in this instance that it represents good planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone from the public either in the chambers or online who wishes to speak to the issue? Okay,
There's no other members of public online, your worship.
thank you. So in that instance, then is there any comment from council? Questions? Okay. All right, if there's no further, I'm hearing something in the background. Are we good? Okay, thanks. Technology is wonderful. There being no further discussion, then the public meeting is now closed and council can make their decision on the application. So we have before us a recommendation for approval of this application, including 5 conditions, and it is printed on on tonight's agenda. So do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Smyber? Seconder? Councillor Crockett? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So the next one is consent application B7-23, B10-23, and zoning bylaw amendment application Z11-23, D&J Patton Brothers Limited applicant, and the property address is 4301 Putnam Road. And again, Mr. Bancroft, I believe you're making the review.
Yes, thank you, your worship. So this proposal is being sought in order to create 4 vacant building lots for residential purposes to accommodate single detached dwellings on each. So what is being submitted is applications for consent along with a related zoning bylaw amendment application. The subject property, it's about 55 hectares in total area. And for the most part, it is a farm parcel situated on the west side of Putnam Road or County Road 30 and on the north side of Crampton Drive. This farm is primarily used for the cultivation of field crops, and it contains a dwelling along with several farm buildings. For the most part, this farm is designated agricultural under the official plan and zoned for farming purposes. There are, however, vacant lands associated with the farm that extend into the hamlet of Crampton, which are zoned hamlet residential HR and institutional I. So those would be for lands located on the north side of Crampton Drive, and also vacant lands associated with the farm, also located in Crampton, zoned hamlet residential, this time located on the west side of Putnam Road or County Road 30. The institutional zone, it is a legacy of a former Mennonite school, which has since been removed from the property. So the applicant is proposing to sever 4 vacant lots, again, to support residential development in the form of single detached dwellings. And the lots that are being proposed would have a frontage of approximately 33 meters along Crampton Drive and an area of just over 2,000 square meters or half an acre. The lands to be retained, or the balance of the farm, they would have an area of about 55 hectares. So the applicant is also proposing to rezone the lands to be severed from the hamlet residential HR zone and the institutional I zone to a site-specific hamlet residential zone. And that would be to allow the residential development of the land. And it would also allow for a reduced setback of 4.5 meters from the center line of a municipal drain compared to the current minimum standard of 10 meters. So the approved yet to be constructed Crampton drain, which is a covered municipal drain, as proposed, it would be situated between lots 1 and 2. And the reduced setback being requested would also coincide with the working area required to support the construction and maintenance of the drain. The institutional zone, which currently exists, it would apply to lots 3 and 4, again, being the former school legacy. But as previously mentioned, these lands are also proposed to be rezoned to that site-specific hamlet residential category. The balance of the farm, it would remain zoned agricultural. I've conducted my analysis, Your Worship, and the planning policy documents, the provincial policy statement, our official plan, and the county official plan, they all encourage opportunities for intensification in settlement areas, provided that the development is compatible with the surrounding area and it represents an orderly and efficient use of land and infrastructure. And in terms of the subject area, the hamlet of Crampton, what is being proposed would be infill development consistent with the existing development pattern found in the area, subject to private servicing in terms of individual private on-site wells and septic systems. So this development would be compatible with the surrounding area, which generally includes residential development in the form of single detached dwellings. I should also add, Your Worship, that there is criteria noted in the official plan pertaining to severance applications. And I'm satisfied that that criteria has been met or it is capable of being met through conditions of consent. In terms of the approved yet to be constructed Crampton drain, again, it would be a covered municipal drain and it would be situated between proposed lots 1 and 2. This drain, Your Worship, is required to ensure that appropriate drainage works are in place to allow the residential development of the lands to be severed, considering the upstream farm located on the lands to be retained. Municipal drains within an urban setting are not uncommon, but due to the proximity of the proposed residential development in relation to the drain, it is appropriate that an easement be dedicated to the municipality, which would coincide with the working area of the drain. This is important considering municipal drains are not registered on title. An easement would serve as an additional safeguard through a notice on title to prevent encroachment within the working area. And the requirement for an easement dedication can be addressed as a condition of consent, to which the applicant has no concerns in that regard. So for the reasons mentioned in my report, Your Worship, I am satisfied that this proposal is consistent with provincial policy. Also, in dealing with rezoning applications, there's a list of criteria that has to be satisfied, dealing with adequacy of soil and drainage conditions, private servicing, adequacy of the existing road network, conformity with zoning, and also that there's no adverse impacts on surrounding uses. So for the reasons mentioned in my report, Your Worship, I am satisfied that this proposal meets the current policy framework. In terms of comments received in the circulation of the application, in terms of agency comments, no issues were identified by either the Director of Public Works or the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Our drainage superintendent has acknowledged that drainage reassessments will be required, which is noted as a condition of consent obligation. In terms of the county engineer, he's requesting a standard widening dedication measured 15 meters from the center line of County Road 30 or Putnam Road along the retained parcel to the satisfaction of the county if the right of way is not already to that width. And that, your worship, is included as a recommended condition of consent. In terms of comments from the public, we did have a written submission received from a Mr. Joe Fleming, to which I understand copies of that correspondence have been provided to members of council. He has expressed concern about the farm receiving fill from vacuum trucks and potential for contamination. He's also questioning details of the Crampton drain. So in terms of the receiving of fill, it's not uncommon, your worship, for farmers to receive fill from outside sources to level out their fields, to promote, encourage efficient cultivation of land. Ultimately, the landowner and the operator delivering the fill are responsible to ensure that it is free of contaminants. Also, staff have reached out to the Ministry of the Environment, to which they have no concerns with what is transpiring in that regard in terms of the farm receiving fill. The origins of the material, as I understand it, it's from material associated with surplus material from trench work, the installation of fiber optic cable, that type of deal. Also, in terms of the concerns that Mr. Fleming has raised about details of the Crampton drain, again, this drainage work that is required is as a result of these proposed lots, and all costs associated with not only the installation of the drainage works, but the maintenance would be borne by either the applicant or either the future owner of those lots affected. Mr. Fleming, as I understand it, is one property removed from the subject lands, to which his lands are not part of the watershed associated with the Crampton drain. So, your worship, it's my recommendation that the applications for consent be approved, subject to the 12 conditions that are noted in my report, and also based on the reasons outlined in my report. In terms of the zoning bylaw amendment, it's my recommendation also that it be approved in principle, and that I be directed to prepare the necessary amendment for council's consideration at the next regular meeting. I'm here to answer any questions, your worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bancroft. Is the applicant or agent in here? Okay. Again, if you'd like to state your name and address, that would be great. Thank you. Just go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, your worship, members of council. My name is Scott Allen. I'm with MHBC Planning. We are acting on behalf of the applicant. With me today representing the applicant is John Patton, who's also available to answer questions as this meeting proceeds. At this time, we'd like to express our support for the findings and recommendations of the planning staff report as presented by Mr. Bancroft. We agree that this project meets applicable planning policy and that it's an appropriate infill development for the Crampton community. We'd also like to advise your worship, my apologies, that we have reviewed the conditions of approval and are satisfied that those can be addressed and are appropriate for the development. Thank you, and gladly answer any questions.
Okay. Is there anyone online or in the room who has questions for the applicant?
Yes, your worship, I am promoting Brenda to Acker to be able to speak.
Thank you.
She's declined. Ms. Acker, do you have anything to say?
Maybe she's just observing then. Okay. No one else then in either in the queue or in the room? No? Okay then. In that case, then we'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it up to questions from council. Anyone in council who has a question for the applicants? Okay. Seeing none then, there's a recommendation for approval of consent applications, including the 12 conditions. And again, I just want to make note that it is the complete information is on the agenda for tonight's meeting. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyber. All in favor? Okay. Then that motion carries. Thanks very much for your attendance here tonight. Now, the next part, oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify. So we
We will move it, yeah.
Okay.
We'll move to the zoning application next then. So again, there's a recommendation for approval of the zoning application. Again, as printed on your agenda. So do I have a mover and a seconder for that, the zoning? Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? All right, again, that motion carries. Thanks very much. Okay, the next one is to consider consent application B 12-23 and zoning amendment application Z 1223. 1242634 Ontario Limited and Dicimer Nagalut 5050 Avon Drive. And I believe Ms. Curtis is doing this particular review. Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of the consent application is to facilitate the disposal of the dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation. The purpose of the rezoning application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use consistent with provincial policy. The subject property is an 84-acre farm located on the north side of Avon Drive on the west side of Pigram Road. The property is used primarily for the cultivation of field crops. The farm contains a single detached dwelling and is serviced by a private well and septic system. The lands to be severed would have a frontage of approximately 63.3 meters and an area of approximately 0.6 hectares or 1.48 acres. The lands to be retained would have an area of approximately 82.33 acres. The lands are designated agricultural according to the Thames Center official plan and zoned agricultural according to the Thames Center zoning bylaw. Planning staff have conducted an analysis as noted in the report. The provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and Thames Center official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas for a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, provided that criteria has been satisfied. As noted in the planning report, staff are satisfied that the criteria has been generally met. Any issues regarding the location of septic system and the potable well, removal of buildings can be addressed through conditions of consent. As mentioned, to prohibit any future residential use of the lands to be retained, a site-specific agricultural A-45 zone is being requested, and the land's zoned environmental protection will remain unchanged. Planning staff are satisfied that the subject applications are consistent with provincial policy and in conformity with the county and Thames Center official plans. In regards to agency comments received during the circulation of the subject applications, the county engineer, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, Hydro One, and the Director of Public Works indicated no comments or concerns. The drainage superintendent advised drainage reassessments will be required. No public comments have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation that consent application B 12-23 be approved, subject to the 8 conditions noted in the report for the reasons outlined in the report. And also that zoning bylaw amendment application Z 12-23 be approved in principle, and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration at a future meeting. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So there again, is anyone in the room, the applicant or the agent wishing to speak or provide further information?
We do have a member of the public, your worship.
Okay, we can move to that when you're ready.
Yep. Mr. Petman, when you're ready. Mr. Petman, we'll need you to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I believe, yeah, the name is up as Jared Petman, but my name is Linda Nagelhout. I'm representing my dad, December Nagelhout. And yeah, as Alana explained, it is a surplus farm dwelling. We are just looking to sever it to be able to, or Jared Petman has expressed that he would like to purchase if we are able to sever it, as he is currently residing there. That's everything.
Thanks very much. Is there anyone else then who wishes to speak to? Nobody else online?
No, your worship.
Okay, thank you. All right, then. Any questions from council? No? Pretty straightforward? Okay, then. So no further discussion. Public meeting is now closed and council can make their decisions on the applications. So again, it's a two-part consent and zoning. So there's a recommendation for approval of consent application, including 8 conditions, again, as printed on your agenda. And do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Smyber, seconder. Councillor Heeman, all in favor? All right, that motion carries. Then we will move on to the next one, recommendation for approval of the zoning application. And again, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Great. The next one is the application for temporary use and zoning bylaw amendment Z 10-23, Purple Hills Acres Limited, care of Ryan Elliott, applicant, and the municipal address is 22538 Purple Hill Road. And again, Ms. Cortez, I believe you're speaking to this. Go ahead.
Thank you, your worship. So the purpose of this application is to permit a mobile home on the property for a temporary period not to exceed 10 years, which is otherwise not permitted. The subject property is a 57-acre farm located on the east side of Purple Hill Road, north of Oliver Drive. The property is primarily used for agricultural purposes in the form of field crop cultivation. The farm contains a single detached dwelling and a drive shed. The dwelling is serviced by private well and septic system, and the Swizer drain flows through the property. The lands are designated agricultural, with a small portion being designated protection area according to the Thames Center official plan, and zoned agricultural with a small portion zoned environmental protection according to the Thames Center zoning bylaw. A mobile home is being proposed, having a floor area of approximately 52 square meters for a temporary period not to exceed 10 years, to be placed in proximity to the existing buildings to provide an alternative housing option. It is important to note that the Thames Center comprehensive zoning bylaw requires mobile homes to be a minimum of 55 square meters. Planning staff have conducted our analysis as outlined in the report. The provincial policy statement provides policy direction to encourage an appropriate range and mix of housing types and to meet long-term needs of the community. The County of Middlesex official plan also encourages a range of housing types, including the provision of alternative forms of housing. The Thames Center official plan allows temporary uses for up to 10 years, subject to evaluation criteria. In particular, these criteria include that the proposed use is temporary and will not create detrimental impacts on the surrounding area and is adequately serviced and will not create undue traffic impacts. In all, staff are satisfied that the criteria has been met or is capable of being met by having the owner enter into an agreement with the municipality. A draft agreement has been attached to the planning report and includes the requirement for the payment of a $5,000 security deposit due at the time of the issuance of a building permit. The security deposit can be refunded to the owner once the mobile home has been removed. Although the proposed mobile home is smaller than the minimum 55 square meters required by the zoning bylaw, the proposed size would be appropriate provided that the structure is CSA approved as recommended by the chief building official. The reduced size is capable of being recognized through site-specific zoning. In regards to agency comments received for this application, no concerns or objections were noted by the county engineer, the director of public works, the drainage superintendent, or Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. As noted, building services has advised no concerns provided that the mobile home is CSA approved. No public comments have been received to date. It is planning staff's recommendation, as outlined in the report, that application for temporary use zoning Z10-23 be approved in principle and that staff be directed to prepare the necessary bylaw for council's consideration once the attached agreement has been executed by the applicant. I wish to further advise that there is an error in the recommended motion for this zoning application as appended to the agenda. Within the recommendation, the address of the subject property 22469 Purple Hill Road is stated when it should say 22538 Purple Hill Road. I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. Is the applicant or anyone representing? Okay. Would you like to come forward and make any comments? And for the record, if you don't mind stating your name, please.
I'm Kelly Bradburn, and Ryan Elliott couldn't be present, but he asked me to come in his absence to answer any questions. It's a tiny home. Yep.
Is there anyone else in the public who has any questions regarding this, either online or I doubt it in chambers?
None online, your worship.
Okay, and there's no one in chambers who has questions. So I'll close the public portion of the meeting and if council has any questions to ask at this point. Councillor Lockie.
Is there any concern that the mobile home could be aged and maybe not aesthetically pleasing and that any neighbors might complain?
I've spoken to all of the neighbors and they're all on board. And it's being built by tiny footprint homes in Clinton, Ben Astra. And actually, yeah, they've seen what it looks like. So they all agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council?
Also, it's far back from the road and yeah, behind trees.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So, in that particular case, no other questions? No? Okay. So do I have a mover for the recommendation to approve the zoning application to the correct address of 22538 Purple Hill Road? Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? Motion is carried then. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So at this point, we'll adjourn the public meeting. The motion is that the public meetings held under the Planning Act to adjourn at 5:50 p.m. and council reconvene its regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Lockie, and all in favor? All right, that motion is carried. Okay, well, we're going to move on now to reports from departments. So the first one on the agenda is CS 9 23 Boys and Girls Club Facility License Agreement. And we have members of the Boys and Girls Club in attendance to answer questions. So we're going to ask the Director of Community Services and Facilities to present. Go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Through your worship, before you have report number CS 9 23 regarding a facility license agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of London. We are very pleased to be joined by two representatives from the Boys and Girls Club this evening, Arden McLean, the Manager of Program Services, Child and Youth, along with Carly Moyer, the Rural Youth Engagement Coordinator. As per the agenda, Arden and Carly are here to answer any questions you may have after my overview of the report. Firstly, a quick background on the existing agreement. The agreement was first brought forward at the July 11th, 2022 meeting of council. At that time, approval was granted to enter into a trial period for the balance of that year, whereby the Boys and Girls Club could offer youth programming at Thorndale Lions Community Center and Thorndale Park free of charge for a specified maximum number of hours per week. In December of the same year, last year, the recommendation from a second report on this matter was approved, which extended the trial period agreement until the end of the school year, June 2023. The purpose of today's report is to provide council with feedback on how the trial period is going, allow council to ask any questions of the Boys and Girls Club, and for council to provide staff with input on the direction you would like to proceed with a more long-term agreement. Based on the letter from the Boys and Girls Club, which is attached to the report, along with conversations that Arden and I have had, here are the main items the Boys and Girls Club would like moving forward. Firstly, an agreement for 1 year or longer, and this would allow them to be able to set up more consistent program scheduling. I would suggest a 3-year contract with the option to extend beyond this if mutually agreed upon. That tends to be our standard. Their current lease for their clubhouse space, not a municipal property, expires as of the end of this year. Another main item on the from the Boys and Girls Club wish list would be permanently moving some equipment, furniture, and supply items to one of the community center meeting rooms, along with storage space needs. Furthermore, an opportunity to offer many activities and programs. This would include things such as certifications for safe food handling, high five, first aid, CPR, babysitting, along with tutoring, employment support, career exploration, cooking classes, visual and dramatic arts, life skills, and the possibility of sports leagues. And finally, possible revenue sharing scenarios were mentioned. We haven't had the chance to talk about that at length, so Arden may be able to expand upon that if council has questions on that. Then finally, the only other thing I wanted to cover off is some factors to be taken into account with the extension of the agreement. That would include, first of all, any sports leagues that could be offered through the Boys and Girls Club. We'd have to have careful consideration if it was any sports that are already being offered in Thorndale through an existing association, as to not necessarily have competition in that regard with, say, like minor ball or minor soccer who pay for rent, to then suddenly have someone else offering a same program that are potentially not being charged any rent. That may not be well received. Another factor is furniture and equipment permanently in any meeting room when used by other groups would be something we'd have to figure out. Our limited storage space is definitely a challenge that we'll have to work on. Results from my department's master plan update may also provide some insight on community feedback for this initiative. And finally, as specified in the report, continuing to provide our regular user groups such as minor sports and municipally run programming with opportunities for their regular bookings in advance of providing free facility usage to the Boys and Girls Club. That would help to minimize potential lost revenue. So I believe that covers off the highlights. So I'm happy to answer any questions, as are Arden and Carly.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Does council have any questions for members here? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
This isn't a question as much as it is a comment. I think that this is an important relationship for Thames Center, and I like how the staff have linked this back to the community services master plan. And I hope that through that process, we can establish a longer term lease agreement with the club.
Okay. Any other member of council wishing to ask a question or Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, your worship. I just want to say thank you for putting this report together. I believe I motioned for it to come to council back in December to give us a broader overview about what it is that you guys were doing in Thorndale. And I thank you for that. And I want to echo Deputy Mayor Smybert's comment on extending this agreement as long as it fits within the parameters that Mr. McDonald had laid out.
Thank you. And I believe Councillor Heeman has something he wishes to say.
Yes, I just want to echo the previous comments made. I think the Boys and Girls Club do great work, and it's good to see them to have the continued opportunity to do that. I think the 3-year trial period will really allow us to figure out a lot of different ways to collaborate. I just have one question though, with respect to the youth clubhouse. Is there in what you met? Director McDonald mentioned that the lease was expiring. I was just wondering if there was any future action on that, or what the intent behind that program is moving forward, given the end of the lease.
So just for the record, you want to state your name, please?
I can,
Thanks.
yes, it's Arden McLean. So in terms of the youth clubhouse, so that was established through the community. So it was the group I Love Community who leases that space. So Boys and Girls Club, or BGC London, is bringing programming and service into that space. So at this point, I can't speak to that agreement. However, I can say that what we're looking for is more versatile space, more opportunity to bring a variety of different activities at the same time. What we're finding is the space that we have at the clubhouse is quite limiting. It's basically one room, so it's gets fairly busy very quickly, and we're finding that young people are benefiting from, as I said, a variety of opportunities, including physical activity. So be able to offer something more consistently and to be able to diversify activity would be what we're looking for. So we may continue to offer programming out of that space depending on the agreement with I Love Community.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Just for my own information, we are looking at extending it till the end of this particular year. Is that right?
Yes, so the one recommendation is just to continue on as is for the time being until something more concrete can be hammered out for a longer term.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the record. So if there are no other oh, sorry, Tom. Go ahead, Councillor Heeman.
Well, I just wanted to pick up on Steve's comments about the potential to extend it for 3 years with the mutual agreement clause. I think that would, give us the opportunity to still reflect on programming, but then, this is the 3rd time we've extended the agreement. I think it might be a good use of all of our time to just allow, Director McDonald and the Boys and Girls Club to negotiate amongst themselves moving forward. Given that it is in fact mutual, I would be seeking the 3 years opposed to the 1 year, because I think we've done that trial period already, and we have a recommendation to move forward.
So I'm going to turn this over to the interim CAO.
Sorry about that. Guess they didn't really want me to speak, but that's okay. I just want to, quick point of clarification is there are two parts to the staff recommendation. The first one is to extend the existing agreement in the same terms and conditions as is currently in place until the end of this year. What that does is, and the second part of the recommendation is for staff to be directed to report back to council with a new license agreement with all of those expanded terms once we have a little bit more information to be able to draft that agreement. And then that would look at a longer term as well as additional programming options and more definitive terms in terms of usage and availability of space and the programs that are going to go in there. So the Boys and Girls Club will definitely be able to continue. And we're hoping that agreement, that new license agreement will be back much before December. It just wasn't able to be back for you tonight, but we want to make sure that the program can continue in the interim. And so we'll just extend currently, but that doesn't mean that we won't have something back to you in the very near future with more expanded terms and a longer focus.
Thank you. So that answers your question, Councillor Heeman?
Yes, it does. And I understand the process. I just think that, the longer we can make these agreements, the more stability it provides to our service partners. And the sooner we can get there, the better. So I would agree with the trial period, but let's keep our eye on the future. So thank you.
Thanks for your comments. So just in light of this discussion, then what I'm going to do is I'll call for the motion, but I'm going to actually read it out so that it's clear for the record. So what we're looking for right now is that report number CS 009-23 be received for information, and that council authorize the extension of the current facility license agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of London until December 31st, 2023, and that staff be directed to report back to council regarding a new facility license agreement prepared in accordance with the considerations provided within this report and the updated community services and facilities master plan. So do I have someone who would like to move that motion? Councillor Crockett, and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? All right. Thank you. The motion is carried. Right. Thanks for your attendance, ladies. The next point, we'll move on to item number 8.2 on the agenda. F-007-23, a financial report, which is unaudited, January to December 2022. And I'm going to ask our finance director, Ms. Grogan, to present her report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Prior to jumping into the report, I'd like to just advise that it was kindly brought to my attention this afternoon that there is an error on page 7 of the report, which speaks to the wastewater budgeted surplus. The report indicates that the budgeted surplus is $324,138. When in fact that is a typo. It should read 139,207. The resulting change in that surplus provided some additional analysis, and high-level accumulated unexpended costs should be noted that occurred in tipping fees, equipment, not capital, and utility categories. So report F-007-23 is before you and speaks to a number of financial implications for the 2022 year end, and is brought to council in advance of the presentation of our audited financial statements, which is scheduled to be presented on June the 12th. The report provides funding from the Tax Stabilization Reserve for the municipal-wide DC exemptions for 2022 industrial permits as the result of Section 6-3 of the DC bylaw. The report also lays out 2022 one-time projects that remain outstanding. These projects were identified in the 2022 budget, and funds were raised from taxes or rates, but the projects were not completed. Given that those funds were raised, towards the projects. At year end, we transfer those funds collected to reserve so that we can utilize that reserve in the future for the completion of the projects that were identified. In addition, a listing of prior year one-time projects that remain outstanding and are to be funded from reserve when completed has also been provided to council for information. In March of 2019, the province announced a one-time investment for small and rural municipalities to improve municipal service delivery and efficiency. This formula funding grant was required to be allocated to projects and could be utilized over several years as long as monies were reserved for specific purpose. Further, in October 2019, the province developed and launched an application-based funding program under the Municipal Modernization Program portfolio. Application grants under intakes 1, 2, and 3 are earmarked for specific projects that are continuing into 2023. There's also provided to council is a listing of those projects that remain ongoing that were funded through that municipal modernization program. The surplus section of the report includes a breakdown of the net overall surplus by department and/or cost center, along with high-level rationale for 2022 variances. Municipalities budget conservatively, and variances are often seen on an annual basis as the result of fluctuations such as weather, changes in interest rates, wear and tear of equipment, changes in costs, additional overall needs, and threshold budgets that have not been utilized. Cost centers and departments that operate at full cost recovery. So for us, those are our building department, stormwater, wastewater, and water cost centers. See surplus and deficit allocations made to reserve without requiring council direction at year end. Section 289 of the Municipal Act stipulates that municipalities must carry any surplus or deficit into the next budget period. Given that current year budgets are set prior to the presentation of prior year financial statements, the determination of net surplus causes a timing issue with municipalities. So the most common practice for municipalities is to actually allocate any general municipal surplus or deficit that we see existing at the end of a year to or from reserve. So new for 2022, staff are recommending that the surplus derived from variances in legal costs be allocated to the legal services reserve. This will allow more accurate budgeting in the future. Staff are also recommending that a portion of the 2022 surplus fund an emergency repair related to a heat exchanger that occurred in a dressing room at the Flight Exec Center, as well as providing an allocation of funds towards the completion of site works at the ORC. Consistent with previous years, staff are recommending that the 2022 surplus resulting from transportation, waste management, cemetery, community services, senior center, economic development, and municipal drain activities be transferred to operating and/or capital reserves specific to those services as outlined in the report. In addition, staff are recommending a contribution to meet the upper threshold limit for the tax stabilization reserve and to transfer the remaining residual 2022 net general municipal surplus to the community services capital reserve to be utilized towards the Flight Exec Center expansion project. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone in council have any questions for our Director of Finance? Councillor Lockie?
Through your worship to Director Gogan, first, thank you for this excellent report. Just a question regarding the ORC expansion. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that this project was to be funded by development fees. Is that correct?
So a portion of the original project is absolutely funded through development charges.
Okay.
In regards to expansion, and specifically if we're looking at certain components, we must look at each component to determine if it's eligible to be funded through DCs. So for example, expenses that we've incurred that are going towards the parking lot expansion. DCs can fund the expanded parking area, but they cannot fund our loss of the existing area that was displaced. So I believe there were 59 existing parking spaces, or around 60 existing parking spaces, and now we have 150 something parking spaces. So we have to look at those percentages to determine what portion. It's just the growth related portion that can be funded through DCs. So we're absolutely utilizing DCs in every way that we can towards these project costs.
Oh, okay, thank you. That actually covers the question I was going to ask. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockeen and Councillor. Is there anyone else who, Deputy Mayor Smybert?
Great, thank you. To the finance director, I just had a question with respect to the industrial development charge exemption. Does our policy state what reserve is used to cover that cost on an annual basis?
So our policy does not state the reserve to be used, but seeing as it is an exemption of the general municipal wide development charges, it excludes water and wastewater specifically, which is why it's recommended to come from that tax stabilization reserve, which provides for I guess, accumulation of services that typically are within that general municipal categorization.
Okay, thank you. And I guess another question, not really related to this report though, is perhaps maybe we should be taking a look at that particular policy to see if we should review it and or reconsider it. I don't know if that is on your work plan for this year.
No, so just to clarify and to give a bit of background, previous councils, I believe the development charge bylaw was updated at the end of 2021 based on a background study that was completed. It was passed in 2022 and I believe has a minimum 5-year life. So there was no plan to bring it back to council. There was a change in policy from the previous development charges bylaw to the current, because previously the exemption for industrial development was 100% exemption for all development charges. And the past council reinstated the removal of the exemption for water and wastewater because those are the most sizable development charges that we're collecting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none then, I would ask council for a mover and a seconder on the recommended motion as outlined in the report as appended to your agenda. A mover? Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? All right. Thank you. Motion is carried. The next one is item 8.3 on your agenda, PDS-032-23, Proposed Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator Order, Escher Planning, Inc. and Municipal Solutions on behalf of Fari Holdings Corporation for the property at 4453 Breen Road, Putnam. And I'm going to ask the Director of Planning and Development to present this.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my report provides an evaluation of the proposal, including a recommendation for council's consideration. And I just wanted to provide a summary in that regard. So just in terms of background, the property, it's located on the south side of Breen Road, east of Putnam Road, backing onto Highway 401, and it has an area just shy of 100 acres. So this is a property that's used for farming purposes, for the cultivation of field crops, and it contains a number of poultry barns. And accordingly, the lands are designated agricultural under the official plan, and they're also zoned for farming purposes. So in terms of the subject proposal, Fari Holdings Corporation, they have requested a proposed order considering that they've received recent inquiries for a site that could accommodate 1 million square feet of dry industrial uses in the form of warehousing and logistics facilities, like trucking operations. So this request would allow dry industrial development, which is otherwise not permitted under the existing zoning. And if an order is allowed, it would permit a change in zoning and provide an exemption from having to be consistent with the existing planning framework. In terms of public and agency consultation, we did have a public meeting of municipal council held last month on April 24th, and my report provides a summary in terms of what transpired, along with a list of agency comments received, quite extensive from a number of ministries, along with various agencies. We also got feedback from the Middlesex Federation of Agriculture, and so on and so forth, as well as the Chippewas of the Thames, and a number of other submissions that were received, in particular from commercial real estate firms in support of the request. I should also point out that Farhi Corporation did provide a written submission in response to the concerns raised during the public and agency process, which is appended to my report. But as outlined in my analysis, Your Worship, as I mentioned before, an order request is not required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, nor to be in conformity with a local official plan. It is a tool under the legislation meant to fast track development proposals beyond the current top-down policy framework. Notwithstanding that, the minister, as well as council of a municipality, in carrying out its responsibilities under the Planning Act, shall have regard to matters of provincial interest. And those matters that are pertinent to this proposal include, in my opinion, the protection of agricultural resources of the province, also the adequate provision of employment opportunities, and also appropriate location of growth and development. Recognizing that agricultural land is a finite resource, this proposal, in my opinion, is concerning based on the potential loss of productive farmland and the fact that we have vacant land that is designated for industrial development. We have several opportunities that are currently available along the 401 corridor. Also, in terms of the unsolicited submissions that were received from commercial real estate firms, in support of the requested order, they mentioned the need for shovel-ready serviced industrial land to accommodate development opportunities. And I want to be clear that there is no serviced industrial land along the 401 corridor within Thames Center's jurisdiction. As outlined in Thames Center's Water and Wastewater Master Servicing Plan update, which was done back in 2019, there were key issues and constraints identified through that process, through extensive modeling, which concluded the inability to effectively service development along the 401 corridor based on our existing infrastructure. So as such, the municipality currently has no plans to service this area. The other point, Your Worship, that is important to raise is that the intent of orders being requested to the minister is to address matters of urgency, to expedite priority developments. In consultation with MMAH's regional office, The ministry noted that it is quite common for order requests to include a specific or detailed development proposal outlining the specific nature of the development, including a site plan submission. So based on the information that was provided by Farhi's group in support of their request, I'm not convinced that this proposal represents a sense of urgency, given the absence of a specific development proposal. This requested order, it does include a high-level planning justification report. However, it simply has no detail in terms of how the land is to be developed specifically. And, based on that, this appears to be a request based on land speculation. So based on my analysis as outlined in my report, I'm not supportive of the requested order. Alternatively, should council be supportive of the request, there is a resolution that has been drafted at the conclusion of my report for council's consideration in that regard. So in closing, it is my recommendation, Your Worship, that my report be received, and that secondly, that council not support the proposed requested order. I'm here to answer any questions, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. I'll now turn it over to council for any questions of the Director of Planning. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Thank you. This isn't a question, just a comment. I thought the staff report was very thorough. It covered all of the points succinctly and clearly. And I want to let the community know that this sometimes isn't an easy decision to make. Having some industrial come into your municipality potentially is usually good news, but not at the risk of taking away further farmland. So I thank staff for your good report.
Thank you to the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Lockie.
This is through your worship. This is just a general comment as well. A lot of thought and effort is put into making our official plans, and I don't believe that accepting a proposal that is not within our plan would be in the best interest for Thames Centre. For that reason, I support Director Bancroft's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, I would like to thank Director Bancroft for stewarding us through our first GEO order. And I think it's important that, we have new policy tools available, but we are also using those policy tools as they are intended and in compliance with existing frameworks. So I think this is a really good example of, it's not necessarily who's right, it's what's right. And what's right in this case is that we are using or not using this tool appropriately. And I think that, we are open to industrial development in Thames Centre. It just has to be done appropriately. And I think we will see more demand for industrial land and potentially more of these GEO orders. And so I think it's very good that we're doing this in a way that sets a strong precedent as to what the expectations are, and also how we want to look at these within the overall framework, not just as a one-off. So thank you, Director Bancroft, and I would like to move the resolutions as provided.
Thank you, Councillor Heaney. So if there are no other questions of council, then we have before us a recommended motion not in support of the proposed order as outlined in the report and as appended to the agenda. And I believe Councillor Heyman has moved that. So seconder, Councillor Crockett, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thanks, Mr. Bancroft. All right, I think you're up again. You're busy tonight. Item 8.4, PDS -033-23, proposed new provincial planning statement 2023. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is to provide a summary of the proposed new provincial planning statement and to outline what the implications are for the municipality. And just for background, in the beginning of April, the province released the proposed new provincial planning statement for review and comment as posted on the Environmental Registry of Ontario, or ERO for short. So with this new document, it is an integration of the provincial policy statement along with the Place to Grow growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe into a new province-wide policy document. So as posted on the ERO, the province is soliciting feedback on the new draft PPS with a deadline of June 5th, 2023. And this announcement comes as a new component of the province's housing supply action plan, which seeks to encourage the construction of 1.5 million homes by 2031. So overall, what is being proposed represents a significant shift, in my opinion, to a more permissive planning framework, except that the province has identified a special interest where municipalities are prohibited from being more restrictive. And I'll get into that later in my presentation. So under this proposed new PPS, the province is proposing policies grouped under 5 pillars. We've got generating an appropriate housing supply, make land available for development. The third one, provide infrastructure to support development. The fourth one, balance housing with resources. And lastly, implementation. Rather than going through each one of these individually, Your Worship, I would prefer that I simply go to the areas which have Thames Centre implications specifically. If there are any questions, however, with details in the report that I have not covered, I'm certainly here to answer any questions related to that. So let's dive in then in terms of what the implications are specifically to Thames Centre. In terms of settlement area expansions, the way the current version of the PPS exists, it does allow for settlement area expansions. However, only one supported by a municipal comprehensive review, or an MCR for short. An MCR is a study which requires consideration of several criteria, including but not limited to demonstration of need, servicing, impacts on agriculture. So all of those matters need to be considered prior to considering a settlement area expansion. So under the new proposed PPS, the requirement for an MCR has been removed, as well as the demonstration of need. The other part that is rather significant is a planning horizon of at least 25 years is proposed in the absence of a maximum time frame. The way it currently operates, we have to plan for a maximum of 25 years. And so the province is essentially proposing the opposite, in that we have to plan for at least 25, a minimum of 25 years. I have concerns about the lessening of the requirements for settlement area expansions, which could create challenges to promote more cost-effective development patterns, including infill and intensification. The way it's currently laid out now, we have intensification targets that we have to abide by in terms of encouraging development within our settlement area boundaries and building upwards essentially. But what the province is proposing is eliminating those targets and simply relying on policy with encouraging language and that sort of thing. So with lessening the requirements for settlement area expansions, it could encourage land speculation at the periphery of settlement areas and promote opportunities for urban sprawl, since it would allow landowners to seek requests to expand settlement areas on a case-by-case basis. This could also include potential strain on municipal infrastructure and finances from ad hoc boundary expansions and disjointed development. I would much prefer that the requirements for a municipal comprehensive review remain in the PPS. And ultimately, municipalities should be the final determinant of any settlement area expansion. Another significant change that is being proposed, which has significant implications for Thames Centre, includes changes in policy for the agricultural areas. On the one hand, there is an encouragement from the province in terms of housing options to allow up to 2 additional residential units or ARUs on farms. Got to be in close proximity to the principal dwelling and subject to conformity with minimum distance separation. So I see this as being a good thing. Considering the impacts to agriculture would be nominal, considering up to 3 units, those units would be clustered in close proximity. The significant change, however, to the agricultural area, that is very concerning, is encouraging a decentralized and scattered pattern of residential development in the rural area. The proposed policies speak to allowing up to 3 residential building lots on a farm, subject to criteria. And this is one of those areas where municipalities may not be more restrictive than the province, except when we have a situation where we need to address public health or safety. I've got a map in my report on the bottom of page 4 of my report, which graphically shows what the implications would be for an 800-acre township block. And again, this is very concerning. Even more concerning if you look at what the potential would be from a lot creation standpoint. We did a calculation looking at existing farm parcels and discounted those with physical constraints. So if you boil it down, you end up with an opportunity for 1,100 existing farms. And if you apply the potential to create 3 building lots for each of those farms, we end up with 3,300 building lots. And if you factor in an approximate lot size of 1.5 acres, this would require approximately 5,000 acres of land. What's also startling is if you were to apply that 5,000 acres of land, not in a rural setting, but in an urban setting on full municipal services, we would be able to accommodate 21,000 housing units. So that in itself would demonstrate a much more efficient use of land and wouldn't result in the loss of agricultural land. The other thing that's important to point out is the amount of land that would be consumed, and that's worst case scenario, to accommodate 3 building lots per farm, that would exceed the combined area of our settlement areas, which is just over 4,000 acres. Conversely, the same number of rural lots, so the 3,300 number, could be accommodated in an urban setting on full municipal services and would only require about 380 acres of land. So based on the math, your worship, this scattered and decentralized approach to rural lot creation has the potential to negatively impact agriculture in terms of complaints concerning normal farm practices, impacting the ability to raise livestock in terms of conformity with minimum distance separation. We also have negative impacts to aggregate extraction, the natural environment, our transportation network, the list goes on. There's another significant consequence to all this, in that rural growth opportunities would be at the expense of planned urban growth, which could lead to inefficient service delivery and the underutilized infrastructure within our settlement areas. So for those reasons, your worship, I do not support these proposed opportunities to facilitate rural lot creation. In terms of other changes that are proposed, I've got that other category within my report on the middle of page 5. And I just want to briefly go through those. There's some new terms that are introduced, centralized servicing system, as well as decentralized servicing system. However, there's no definition associated with those terms, which is very concerning. Also, there's a lack of natural heritage policies, which is challenging to understanding the full scope of the new PPS. Also, there's several areas dovetailed within the proposed new PPS that states that policies are to be implemented subject to provincial guidance, and the timely provision of said guidance would significantly assist municipalities from an implementation standpoint. The other thing that I wanted to add was that municipalities are required to undertake early engagement with Indigenous communities and coordinate on land use planning matters. I think overall it would be helpful if the province could provide direction on the extent of engagement required. In terms of financial implications in regards to all this, those financial implications are unknown. However, staff will continue to monitor the PPS review and keep council informed on the status. These proposed new changes, they could trigger revisions to the Thames Centre official plan, which could result in inefficient uses of land and infrastructure, which may impact the general tax levy. So in closing, it is my recommendation, your worship, that my report be received, and that secondly, that I be given direction to forward this report to the province as Thames Centre's official comments on the review of the proposed policies as per the posting on the ERO. I'm here to answer any questions, your worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Comprehensive report. Thank you. I see Councillor Human's hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Like that was a pretty good demonstration of the impacts, and I think just the ability to double Dorchester and Thorndale without any kind of structure really that puts it in perspective. And I think that when we talk about preserving farmland and all this orderly planning and why it matters, I think that's a perfectly good example right there about the land use efficiency and what it is that you and the municipality actually provide as a service to society. And I think that this undermines that at a basic level. So I would be fully in support of putting these forward as our comments. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Human. Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Bancroft, another great proposal that you put forward. Thank you for the work that you and your team did on this. I just wanted to state that I truly appreciate the Thames Center view that you took on this, and I had asked our clerk to include item 9.14, which touched on, which was a resolution from Stormont Dundas Glengarry that touched on the natural heritage and egg lot creation, but I would be comfortable submitting this as Thames Center's comments against the PPS. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Crockett. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Smyberg.
Maybe just tie into what Councillor Crockett is suggesting. I was wondering, and I can ask this as staff, if we can include the fact that we're supporting our local Federation of Agriculture. They came to us, they had some correspondence. I know they're going to be filing their own correspondence, but wondering if we could just have that tie-in to indicate that we have been in consultation with them, we support them. I wanted to see something in there. Again, those two perspectives are the same, so I don't think it's going to change anything within the report, but I just wanted to see if we could include that.
Anyone else?
Oh, I have more.
Oh, you have more. You're not done. Go ahead.
Just a couple, and these are just questions. So normally when there's new legislation, there's some in-person consultation. Has that been done across the province, or is the province just looking for the written submissions?
No, the province is only looking for written submissions and, within that 60-day window.
Interesting. Okay. And I just wanted to know too, your Institute of Professional Planners, have they provided a submission? And is it consistent with what you've been providing to us?
Through your worship, yes, OPPI has provided a submission to the province. They're also encouraging full members to provide submissions. So definitely, the concerns that I've raised are echoed essentially throughout the profession.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move? All right. So once again, I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder of the motion, and I am just going to read it again for clarity. That report number PDS-033-23 entitled Proposed New Provincial Planning Statement 2023 be received, and that the Director of Planning and Development Services be given direction to forward the said report to the Province of Ontario as the Municipality of Thames Centre's comments on the review of proposed policies adopted from A Place to Grow and Provincial Policy Statement to form a new provincial planning policy instrument as per the Environment Registry of Ontario posting number 0196813. So do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Crockett, seconder. Councillor Lockie, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may require discussion, but no action on the part of council. Consent items are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more item be removed for further action. Are there any items that members might like to have pulled at this point? Deputy Mayor Smyberg?
I wanted 9.11 pulled, please, for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Crockett?
I just wanted to reiterate my last comment that I did ask for 9.14 to be added and reviewed for tonight. But I'm comfortable with the previous motion being our comment. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to duly support. Yeah, okay, we can keep it in then.
So in this particular case, then, I think what I would be looking for is a motion for items 9.1 through 9.10. To be a mover and a seconder for those particular items. Councillor Lockie. And seconded by Councillor Heeman. And then moving down a motion, oh, I'm sorry, all in favor of that? Okay, the motion is carried. And then moving down to 9.12 and 9.13, a mover and a seconder for those two items? Or are we going to include 9.14 as well in that? Okay, you're fine with that. Okay, so 9.12 through to 9.14. Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman, and all in favor? Okay. Then we can move into discussion on 9.11.
Seeing that the AMO conference is being held in London, and I think the majority of members of council will be attending that. I think it's important that we do put forth some delegation requests to various ministers. I have not exactly put some wording around what issues and what ministers we shall be talking to, but I'm hoping that we can provide some of those suggested delegation topic areas to the interim CAO for her to put together and make the request on behalf of council.
Okay. So you're moving that motion?
Does it need,
that,
do we need
do
a
we
motion?
need a motion for that?
Go ahead.
Yes, the policy does state that it should be done by resolution, so I can just word it in the form of resolution.
Resolution is moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? So carried. Thank you. All right. Any unfinished business? No? Okay, any motions other than, no? Okay, any new business? No? All right, we'll move into bylaws then. The recommended motion is that bylaws 52-2023 through 54-2023 be adopted as presented, and we are looking for a mover for that. It's printed on your agenda. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Heeman. All in favor? All right, the motion's carried. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be ending the regular meeting and moving into closed session. So council will now move into closed session meeting for which there will be no live streaming. And new live stream will continue after the closed session portion has been completed. So I would like someone to move that motion and second it. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. During the closed session, council discussed personal matters regarding employment recruitment, as well as an update on the chief administrative officer recruitment process, and provided direction to staff. Are there any motions from the closed session?
Yes, I'd like to move the first motion. That the establishment of a full-time human resources manager position be approved. And that the interim CAO be authorized and directed to initiate a recruitment process for a full-time HR manager. It being noted that the final selection of such HR manager will be made by and following the recruitment of a new permanent CAO. And that the 2023 costs related to the new position be funded from the tax stabilization reserve.
Okay, someone to second the motion, please. Councillor Lockie, all in favor? The motion is carried. Okay,
I have a second resolution, please. I'd like to move that bylaw 56/2023, appointing David Barrick as Chief Administrative Officer for the municipality of Thames Center be approved effective June 12th, 2023.
a seconder for the motion, Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Motion is carried. Right, so move that bylaw number 55-2023, being the confirmatory bylaw, be adopted as presented. Deputy Mayor Smyber, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Motion is carried. All right, the next meeting will be Monday, June the 12th at 2023 at 5 p.m. in the council chambers, and followed by the next planning meeting at Monday, June 26, 2023 at 5 p.m. At this point, I'd like to call for adjournment. Someone to move the motion for adjournment. Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.